You are beloved and you're welcomed here. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, you are beloved and you're welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together. Those are the words of Joan Javier Duval, minister of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier. If you're new to North Chapel, welcome. If you're visiting, please consider signing the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. We have hearing assistance devices and large print versions of the hymns and the order of service on the back table should you need them. Tatum Barnes will be leading spiritual exploration this morning. After the service, we invite you to visit with each other. You can join us for coffee in the social hall downstairs, where masks are optional, although as a precaution we request that you wash your own cup and utensils. Or you can mingle in the sanctuary. You will find announcements and upcoming events in the order of service. I believe Polly has an announcement.
At the end of your In Touch, sometimes Joanne has put an announcement about children who are available for mentoring. And there are two boys who are 7 years old. One's in Killington and one's in Barnard. And then there's a girl in 8th grade in Woodstock, who all of them would welcome having a mentor. And if anyone would like to speak to me about it, I can provide you with the information.
And now Richard Schramm has an announcement.
Good morning. I have three quick ones. The first is that at 1 o'clock this afternoon on Zoom, the Amazing Grays will be returning, and Jen Dalton and Judith Taylor will be leading the Amazing Grays. We're going to bring it back for 4 months with different kind of leadership and see if we can get it kind of re-going by the fall. So if you'd like to join the 1 o'clock session, I can give you the link to that. Just try to catch me after the service. You could try Richard A. Schramm at Gmail, but don't forget the A, because a friend of mine who's become a long-time friend in Cleveland who doesn't have the A in it, and it has to go to him, and then he sends it to me. So anyhow, let me know if you'd like to join. Secondly, you know this, but I want to remind you that Gwen Groff is providing pastoral care during the period that Liam is on sabbatic. And she's a wonderful woman, and she has office hours. I really encourage you to go speak with her, spend some time with her. You don't have to have this dire straits or whatever, just to have a conversation. And Peg and I had a wonderful one with her last week or so. And the third thing is that with Gwen's help and Mary Blanton's help, we're putting on a little bit of a kind of a group office hour in some sense. We're taking on a Wednesday afternoon in the middle of the month when she has office hours, which are Wednesday afternoon and Friday mornings. On that Wednesday afternoon, we're going to pull an hour out of that and try to get a group together where we'll all share our stories, what's going on in our lives. It can be our struggles, our joys. It could be something from our past just to have an opportunity to share and have others there to listen actively to your story. If you want feedback and so forth, you can ask for it. Otherwise, you just have an opportunity to talk and everybody else listen. So that's beginning on Wednesday, February 14th, their first group meeting, and I hope you join us. Thank you.
Now's the time to put your cell phone in worship mode. The worship theme for February is love. When I think of love as a force in my life, I remember a lot of emotions that came with it. Khalil Gibran expresses some of what I mean from the beginning of the chapter on love in his book, The Prophet. Then said Almitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to them. Though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden." Now, speaking of the north wind, here's a completely different aspect of love, expressed in a poem by Rebecca Ann Parker, president and professor of theology at the Star King School for the Ministry, where I think Leon went, at the Graduate Theological Union in Oakland, California. A winter blessing. In the shadowed quiet of winter's light, earth speaks softly of her longing. Because the wild places are in tears, "Come," she cries to us, "kneel down here on the frosty grass and feel the prayer buried in the ground. Bend your ear to my heart and listen hard. Love this world," she whispers. "Distill peace from the snow and water the cities with mercy. Weave wonder from the forest and clothe grief with beauty. Rest in the rhythm of the turning year. Trace the bending arc, rounding the curve toward justice. And vow anew to do no harm. The winter trees stand watch, haloed in the last gleams of the slanting sun. Glory sings here. Heaven echoes the call. Repeat the sounding joy. Make your life an answer. Bow, praise, rise.
Good morning. The teaser that I wrote for this talk promised an exploration of the mustard selection available at Whole Foods, and I look forward to getting to that. But I want to start from a bigger scale, and that is to describe the opening scene in the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita is a monumentally important spiritual text. It is the most famous section of the Mahabharata, which is the most epic poem from the Indian subcontinent. It would be hard to overstate the importance of this text as a beacon for hundreds of millions of people around the world. Its themes resonate with important texts from many traditions. The Gita opens with a tense scene unfolding on the battlefields of Kuru and Dharma. It is the very cusp of war. Two opposing clans, the virtuous Pandavas and the evil Kauravas, stand arrayed against each other. Weapons are drawn, horses are lathered, battle horns are blaring, the air smells like sweat and adrenaline. And in this moment, we meet the hero of the epic, Arjuna. Arjuna knows this will be a grisly and fratricidal war. He knows that misery and death of noble people on both sides will result. He is caught between his duty to fight and his instinct against it. Arjuna asks his charioteer Krishna to drive him into the center of the battlefield to survey the scene. In the story, time freezes for everyone except Arjuna and Krishna. And in this moment, Arjuna, dismayed by his choices, says to Krishna, "As I see my own kinsmen gathered here, eager to fight, my legs weaken, my mouth dries, my body trembles, my hair stands on end, my skin burns, the bow Gandhava drops from my hand, I am beside myself, my mind reels." At the beginning of their interaction, Krishna appears for the most part like an average human. As it turns out, however, Krishna is God incarnate. And what pours out from him in response to Arjuna's conundrum to fight or not to fight is codified in the Gita as the foundational teachings of yoga that can save Arjuna from his internal angst. The Gita is for Arjuna and for all of humanity, and in chapter 11, there is an astonishing spiritual fountain that is worth pouring over 100 times. I say this now, but I knew nothing of the Gita in 1997 when I signed up for a yoga class my sophomore year in college. We met in the wrestling room, and you can be sure there was nothing in that room that outwardly resembled the grandeur of the battlefields of Dharma and Kuru, maybe a little sweat and adrenaline in the air. But that's about it. My first teacher's name was Daisy, and she had a very soothing voice. And with a few prompts, she'd coax my body into these twists and turns where my limbs would be wrapped up in funny positions, or I'd become upside down in a headstand, which was not the normal state of affairs and a little scary. And occasionally there'd be noises like popping and grunting from the grappling I was doing with myself. Not long into this semester of wrestling with myself on the sticky mat, I realized that what was underway was not just physical change, but cognitive, emotional, and spiritual transformation. I began to understand that the physical practice of yoga is designed to quiet the chittavrittis, the monkeys chattering incessantly in the mind. By perhaps the divine hand of the college registrar, yoga class met just before an introduction to art history. On the days that I went to yoga before art history, I noticed that my senses and my soul and my heart were better equipped to take in the beauty and genius of the great artists. No matter how cloudy my mind was from the night before, staying up too late, worrying about an exam, whatever I was worrying about as a college student, yoga class would squeegee the windshield. It was like driving behind a truck on Route 4 this time of year and your windshield glass gets totally covered with grime. Yoga felt like pulling the sprayer lever and Everything would be clear again, aware, alert, relaxed internally. Another yoga teacher of mine, Richard Freeman, years later explained that the little rectangle of rubber where you practice yoga is the battlefield of Kuru and Dharma. Onto it you take your internal struggles, your questions, your conflicts, and on it you push your physical and emotional limits, hopefully in a nonviolent way, and then you sit back and see what the battle has wrought. It is a practice of effort and surrender, and that practice was perfect for that time in my life. And it anchored me for the remainder of college. It anchored me after graduation when I didn't know where to go for a first career. Well, I became a yoga teacher, and I became a massage therapist. It's a similar healing art that helps people reconcile the difficulty of embodiment. Indeed, in my 20s, but not just in my 20s, there have been some moments of disorientation and indecision about relationships, careers, and other big stuff. I have on occasion felt like I'm on a spinning lazy Susan being bombarded by strobe lights. Like Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield, not knowing what to do or what it was all about. In chapter 11 of the Gita, Krishna shakes off the veil of the charioteer and reveals to Arjuna his true divine nature. And in doing so, Krishna reflects back to Arjuna Arjuna's own divine nature, from which flows perfect self-love and acceptance. Arjuna can stand in a place where choices are without self-doubt and uncertainty, and actions are without residue. Krishna says, "Look, Arjuna, thousands, millions of my divine forms, beings of all kinds and sizes, of every color and shape. Look, the sun gods, the gods of fire, dawn, sky, wind, storm, wonders that no mortal has ever beheld. Look, Arjuna, the whole universe, all things, animate or inanimate, are gathered here. Look, enfolded in my infinite body." That was and is very exciting to me. I get delightful chills thinking about Arjuna's enlightenment. I am convinced that studying yoga and contemplating the divine allowed windows of clarity during those bifurcation points in my life. My choices were more informed and intentional. And yet, why now still do I feel unsatisfied? Why am I antsy? Why do I sometimes feel like crawling out of my own skin? Why do I look for the green grass over there? Well, for example, 6 or 7 years into teaching yoga and doing body work, I got professionally restless, or I felt I was ready for change and more education. I was so drawn to yoga and the inquiry into the nature of reality, I applied to various divinity schools with the intention to study these traditions more formally. I also loved my work as a massage therapist, and I was watching my wife go through medical school at Dartmouth. I became curious about internal medicine and complex disease processes. So while applying to divinity school, I simultaneously applied to schools in acupuncture and traditional East Asian medicine. So there's a moment of the lazy Susan, Britton standing right on it, actions needing to be taken, choices needing to be made. Which road should I go down? I cleared the windshield as best I could, and I ended up at school for Chinese medicine in Portland, Oregon, where to my delight, we studied a lot of Qigong, Tai Chi, chanting, tea ceremony, the canonical texts. We attempted to live and breathe Southeast Asian phenomenology, epistemology, Taoism, Confucianism, exploring the meaning of suffering. I'm 12 years out from school, and every day I'm in clinic, I feel that I have slipped into a glove that was tailored very nearly, if not exactly, for my personal and professional interests. And also, with an exclamation point underlined, highlighted, I have a spouse of 25 years who is an incredible life partner. I have 2 daughters who astonish me on a daily basis with their creativity and vibrancy and inner beauty. I could go on a long time about them. This is a miracle that I can live like this. Gratitude pulses through me alongside my own blood. And yet, there seems to be this chasm between where I stand, mostly contented, often joyful, and where Arjuna stood, gazing directly into the divine and having the divine reflected back into him. There's a difference, so my mind thinks, of being merely contented and the state of being of santosha, deeply contented, unflappably contented, impenetrable inner peace kind of contented, an anchoring of the soul in the jnana, the knowledge that everything is just as it is supposed to be always, regardless of external or internal circumstances. Maybe I've tasted that a couple of times in moments of deeper practice, but mostly I'm content, admixed with happy, grumpy, worried, pensive, sad, calm, the normal human states of mind, the chattering monkeys. I think of much of what I've described to you is of a thirsty guy with a shovel in his hand. You know the story. He starts digging a well, gets a few feet down, doesn't find water, so moves 10 feet over, starts digging a new well. I've got yoga, dig, 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 no water. I've got acupuncture, dig, 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 no water. Photography, most recently, dig. I have to thank Leon and North Chapel for inviting me here today. I described earlier that bifurcation in my life to choose acupuncture or divinity school, and right now I get to scratch a little bit of that itch of what it would have been like had I matriculated to those schools, to one of those schools. That's been with me for 25 years. So I'm really quite grateful to be here, and knowing myself, in the coming weeks, I might wander over to the websites of those schools and think, maybe I need that education, those credentials. Maybe that's the golden shovel. And my wife might look over my shoulder and laugh and remind me that I don't really abandon the old wells, I just add more of them to tend to. I don't know if I'd be any closer to the water. I can extrapolate from my more profound experience with practice that there is the possibility of deep contentment and abiding happiness. Plenty of people have written and talked about it. I think to myself, I'm not sure if I'm going to get there in this lifetime, and I am discontented with that thought. But I'm trying to relax into it. I'm trying to enjoy the incrementalism and the process. I hold out hope that maybe the chasm I imagine is really deep, but not necessarily wide. Maybe all I can perceive is the darkness just beyond my toe tips, but all it would take is a small step to get across. Anyway, I can feel a softening into the wisdom to be gained from the mundane parts of life and the steady march of my chosen methods, yoga or acupuncture or parenting or coffee with a friend. A friend over coffee recently reminded me of the Jack Kornfield book that explores enlightenment. It is titled, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. This life is okay. It is very okay. It is profoundly okay. And I may not need the grandiose battlefields to find inner peace. It may just happen in the mustard section at Whole Foods. My crisis of choice and subsequent arrival at internal contentment could be right there under the fluorescent lights. Book title, The Method and the Mustards. I trust that for many of you, you have been or are digging a well. This chapel seems a good venue for it. And I'm quite sure that many of you are further down. Maybe some of you have even tasted the water or are perpetually immersed, or at least amphibious. And it's good to be in company this morning with other well diggers wherever you are in the process. I was raised Jewish, but I love the way many Christian services conclude with a phrase that I think means, may you be content. May you find abiding happiness. May peace be with you.
May we all remember how fortunate we are compared to many others in our community, in our country, and around the world. I hope you all have a fortunate week. Until next Sunday, blessed be and amen.